Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY and the third and final episode of getting this AirLift suspension installed in my O2 WRX. I'm super excited to get this project finished up, so let's not waste any time and jump right into it. So I went ahead and I ended up getting a little bit of work done. Honestly, I came out and really all I said I was going to do was start a fire and get it warmed up here, and then I started messing around with things, and before you knew it, I ended up getting a little bit of work done here. But you can see we got these side trims installed in the back of the trunk here, and those went in relatively easy. Like I said, all I did was I had to trim this flat sort of footer portion off in order to get it down there. Obviously this side really needed it because we got all that stuff running along there. Hindsight being 2020, I should have put the trim pieces in first in order to lay out my carpet piece there. But just the order in which I did things, I wanted everything mounted down, which means I needed the carpet on there. It's just the way I wanted to do it. If I could go back in time, maybe I could take a little bit of extra time and do it better, but this is really the way that I wanted to do it. So unfortunately, the carpet ended up probably about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch too far this way, so it fits real nice and flush right up along there. But on this side, there is a little bit of a gap, and then I cut a little bit too much clearance for the airline that comes through right there. So all I'll do is I'll trim out a piece of the extra carpet we end up with at the end, and I'll just tuck it behind there to cover up that white spot there. And then honestly, that little gap's really not going to bother me that much. As far as the power leads for the battery, I kind of thought about it and I overthought it, and I bought a couple of things that I thought were going to work, and I really just didn't like them. I didn't want to do the remote post that I had talked about in another video for multiple reasons. I won't bore you with why I didn't want to do that. So what I actually ended up doing is I just used a bolt, and I ran that bolt right into where the wire would normally go, and I drilled like a flat spot into it so the set screw holds it right in place. So essentially I converted what was, where you would put your cable in there and then tighten it down, and I just converted it to a post style. And then we have our battery cable that runs to the front on there, as well as another ring terminal on top of that for the power to the air compressor and the power to the automatic tank drain. And then back behind here is the fuse, the inline fuse to the compressor that AirLift provides. So that's all wired up with the proper fuse. The only trouble I ran into with that is, you can see I just knocked that cover off of there. It doesn't snap into place anymore. I kind of had to modify it a little bit, so I'll probably just have to tape that into place. It's not the end of the world. And then you can see the cables come through that spare tire, the jack cover, lower than they did before. So I had to cut away quite a bit more material, so there's a pretty large hole in there now. So I'll just jump on eBay and I'll grab a new one of those. They're not very expensive. They're about like anywhere from like $6 to $10, and because they're on the side kind of upright like that, they don't tend to get stained. They're usually still in pretty good condition no matter what vehicle they come out of. So I'll just get a new one. That way we can cut it down further and just have like a smaller notch to slot it over, and have the cables run through there into the side compartment there. And you can see back behind the tank there, I installed the 2 trim pieces that go back there. So all that leaves us now is our wiring here in the front. I know I did say in the last video I was going to run the USB cable and the switch for the automatic tank drain into the center console there. I decided not to do that. So I have all of my wires coming up here. We have our signal wire, which is going to go right into this fuse tap I already have. This is for my gauges, so it shouldn't be the end of the world to install the signal wire to the relay for the compressor. All it is just a signal wire. It should be no problem just splicing both my gauges and that signal wire into there. We have the switch right here, which will run up back along with that signal wire, and I'm actually going to tap it right into here. We're just going to use this guy right here, and I'll drill a hole in that. We'll put our button right there. That'll be good to go. And then we have our USB cable right here, and that'll just go up behind, over, and to the center console. All right, and there we go. We got the switch wired up right here. This was a little bit of a pain because there's all that stuff that, if you've ever pulled one of those out, there's a whole bunch of plastic that sticks out in the back. So in order to clear enough plastic out to be able to tighten that plastic nut up there on the back, that was a bit of a pain, but We got that all in there. So that's there for the tank drain. And then we got the signal wire hooked right up there. And then also, like I said before, like I mentioned, the gauges are also run into there. But that's just gonna go right there on the ignition fuse. And that should be good to go. So now we just need to run the USB cable over to where I want it over here. I've got a little part that I ordered for that, and I'll show you here in 2 seconds. All right, guys, so we got the USB cord ran, and what I ended up doing was I found a website called No Coast Engineering, and they make these 3D printed AirLift controllers. So I'd got that all installed. It was a little bit of a headache. It does actually replace your entire ashtray or change holder, whatever you want to call it. The whole unit, top and bottom piece comes out. And then it utilizes the 2 screw holes that go up in there that hold that bracket in place. And that mounts it there. And then your controller goes right on there. Now they use Velcro to keep it on there. It's not the greatest hold in the world, and I know on their website, when you look in the pictures for the product, there was one that actually showed 2 magnets in there. So I might actually modify this because this is a steel case on here. So I may get some magnets and recess them and glue them in there, and then that'll just stick in with magnets. That might be nicer, but that'll be a project for another day. But that's in there, that's ready to go. And then the only other thing I almost forgot to do, I don't know how big of a deal it would be, was I almost forgot to wire in that 3 amp fuse for the signal wire that goes to the relay. So we got that wired in, tucked away up in there. That's good to go. So I forgot to hit record, but basically this is where we're at. I've powered it on. You can hear the compressors going right now. I believe AirLift wants you to put about 50 psi in the bags before putting it on the wheels and tires back down on the ground, which is good. We'll inflate the bags to about 50 psi, and that'll allow us to go around and make sure that there aren't any air leaks. It'll be a lot easier, you know, to get to those leader lines and stuff without the wheels and tires on there. Once we know that there's no air leaks, throw the wheels and tires on, and we'll get this thing on the ground. All right, so take 2. The instructions clearly say that they want you to have about 50 psi of pressure in there, but when you turn the system on, you can't even manually inflate the bags until you calibrate the system. And when you go to the calibration clearly wants the vehicle on the ground. So I threw the wheels and tires on, lowered it down. I had to throw it on some blocks, mainly just in the front to be able to get my jack back out from underneath, really the bumper and the intercooler. There was plenty of space at the jacking point, but the jack just gets pinched onto the bumper. So it's up on blocks right now. I'm gonna go ahead and then turn the key back on and then try the calibration. Alright guys, so the setup and calibration was actually not exactly what I would call straightforward, but I've been playing around with it for a little while and I've got everything going, so we're at that point now that I think everybody waits for when they put their air ride in. Let's go ahead and air it out. So there it is, all aired out. Let me go ahead and bump this back up to where I think I want the ride height. I'm not sure I have enough voltage left in the battery, but let's go ahead and try. There we go. It might be a little too low. I'll have to drive it and see how I like it at this ride height. We may bump it up a little bit, but just visually right now I kind of like where it's at, so we'll leave it here for now, and when we get it back out on the road, when the weather gets nice, we'll fine-tune that ride height in and get it exactly where I want it. But right now we need to move in the trunk because we need to finish up that last little bit in the trunk, get that last panel in with the carpet on it to finish up the trunk setup. Alright, and so I got the new board down in there. I just used 1/4-inch plywood, and then I did order a replacement piece of carpet in order to cover it. Unfortunately, you can see the difference. The replacement piece that you can buy now for these GD Imprezas is not the same as the original one that came with the car. So there's a slight difference in the texture. The color's about the same, but it's mainly kind of the texture, the fabric that they use. But overall, it is what it is. I think it's going to be just fine. Right now, it's sitting on a couple of spacers to make it flush with that right there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end up taking some brackets, like some just right angle brackets, screw them into the edge of that panel that we built for all the components, and then that'll just set right on those little brackets. But all in all, I'm happy with that how that came out. Everything looks real nice in the trunk now, and the car looks real good as well. Looking it over now, it does look a little low in the rear. Like I said, we still have to finalize a lot of things. There's definitely going to be another video coming where we have to roll the fenders because we still have to do those. So that means that the fender liners still have to come in. So that's not it as far as the whole setup, the ride height, and everything with the air setup here. There's going to be some more videos coming out. I'm going to do a video on rolling the fenders and dialing everything in with the ride height. But right now it's winter time, so I can't get this out on the road anyway. So for now, we're going to cut this video here because this is kind of how it's going to sit until we get the nice weather. You can see there it is a little low in the back, so I'm either going to lower the front or raise the back a little bit. But yeah, honestly, I'm super excited to have this done. I really like my cars low. I've done coilovers in the past, but it just makes it difficult when you're static to get over some things. So it's going to be nice now to be able to air this up and have a little bit of clearance to get over things. So. Alright guys, so we're back. It is a new day, and if the end of that last bit seemed a little rushed, it's because it was. I was getting a little bit burnt out that night. I was working real late, and I'd actually filmed a outro for that, and then some things happened, and I realized it just wasn't a good place to cut the video. Mainly after I got done filming that, everything was good. I was prepared to have that be the end of the video. And then I went inside for a bit. I came out and I noticed that the tank pressure as well as the rear passenger side bag pressure were both really low. And I found a couple leaks, led to a bunch of headaches. So let's just jump right back in and I'll let you know what's going on with all that. All right, so when I came back and I checked things, and I started looking for leaks, I did end up with a leak here to the rear passenger side bag. It's just where that leader line comes underneath and then it goes to the fitting to go to push to connect. All I did was tighten that up, sprayed some more soapy water on it, and it was no longer bubbling, so that's all set and good to go. The main headache's over here. If you notice, there's no more filter there. And that's because it's over here on the bench. There was a leak where this adapter fitting goes into the tank. So I just tried tightening it down at first, and that didn't work. So I took it back out, reapplied the Teflon tape, tried tightening it down again, and I ended up rounding the squares on there, trying to get it tight to where I thought it might stop leaking. So I replaced it with another one that happened to come with the kit. I was lucky enough that there was two in the kit, and same deal. Just tried tightening it down, and ended up rounding the flats on that. So I ended up ordering a new fitting. I actually ordered one, and then I realized there was no sense in ordering one. I could just run to the parts store and get a new one. So quicker was to go to the parts store, but then I got busy with some things. So now we've got two to play with. But since I can't get Teflon tape to give me a seal on there, I did a little bit of Googling and whatnot, and I came across this Loctite 565 as far as being a great option for creating a seal with air fittings where Loctite won't create a seal for you. So let's go ahead, we'll get this applied, and this does need 24 hours to cure, so unfortunately it's about all the work I'm going to get done today, but for you guys it'll just be a quick fade transition, and we'll be back installing this, crossing our fingers and hoping we don't have any more air leaks. The only concern I have is when I came back out, like I said, it was getting real late that night, and I just kind of started rushing through some things. The front's really low, but I don't know if I left it low and had only raised the rear to try to mess with things in the rear, so we might have a little bit of leak in the front. I'm leaning more towards maybe I just left the front low and forgot about it because both sides are low. It'd be really annoying if I had an equal sort of leak on either side, and it's definitely not aired all the way out, and it's been quite a bit of time now that it's been sitting out here. So I may have just left the front down. I don't know. We'll have to hunt, spray some more soapy water and just verify that there's no leaks. But for the time being, let's just go ahead and get this assembled, put together with the Loctite 565, and go from there. And yes, I know using crescent wrenches is probably one big reason why I rounded the squares on those fittings. However, I keep forgetting to bring my standard set of wrenches out here. I generally only work with metric out here, so for the time being, at least for now, getting this lightly assembled here, we're going to use the crescent wrenches, but when I go to finally install this on the air tank, we'll go ahead and use the standard size wrenches that I need. And honestly, there wasn't a leak here at this fitting going into the dryer. There wasn't one on this side either. I'm going to leave this one alone, but since we're messing around right here anyway, I'll just go ahead and replace this with some of the 565 as well. And just a little bit of brake clean on a rag to clean up our threads, just in case there's any contaminants there. Going to want to make sure that these dry nicely. You don't really want any solvent on your threads while you're wanting this 565 to cure. That's the good thing about brake clean, is it kind of dries away nicely. I'm going to get inside the threads here best we can, and we'll go ahead and get inside the threads on the tank that's in the trunk as well. So honestly, I'm probably applying way too much, but at this point, having this gone in and out several times, it's a big pain, and I really want this to seal and not have to worry about this again. So to compound that, being inside the trunk and trying to work is a very tight spot, and it's also very annoying to get to, so I'm actually not going to bring the camera in there with me. I'll get this installed, and I'll show you everything all wrapped up. Alright guys, there we go. It's installed back in there. It's probably not as tight as I would have liked it to have been, but in order to do one more full 180 with that filter, I feel like that would have just been too tight. Teflon tape, I don't think it would have been sealed at all the way Teflon tape is meant to be used, but being that that liquid thread sealant's on there and it was kind of squishing out as I got it tight to that point, I think we should be good to go. So like I said, we got to let this sit for 24 hours. I'm going to go ahead, sleep on this, come back in the morning. I'll be right back with you. Alright, so it's been 24 hours. That thread sealant has had time to cure and set up. So as far as I can remember, it has been a few weeks since I was out here messing with everything when I found the leak. I believe everything's hooked back up, so we'll run some power to it and see if everything functions properly. Alright, so the good news is all of the fittings that we put sealant on yesterday over there are sealed up and not leaking. The only leak that I have currently is right here at the push to connect. So it could be just the end of that hose got a little messed up, unplugging and plugging it a couple of times. Worst case scenario, I do have another one of these 90s. It may just need to be replaced out, but that does mean draining the tank completely in order to take that fitting off. So I'm not going to worry about that right now, because honestly that's less of a nightmare than a leaky threaded fitting that won't seal. So we're going to move on from there. The only other problem before I ended a couple weeks ago is the automatic tank drain's not doing anything when I push the button inside the car. So give me a minute to mess around, check voltages with my multimeter, and see what's going on with that. So I believe I found the culprit. It looks like to be a faulty momentary switch. I don't know if maybe I overheated it when I was soldering the wires on there. The connectors on that style momentary switch they provide with the kit are really, really tiny. Your really only option is to solder. Maybe I overheated it, I'm not sure, but I ended up finding 12 volts on one side of the switch, and then when I depressed the switch, it wouldn't show any voltage on the other side. So I cut the switch out, stripped the wires, and if you touch the two wires together, it works just fine. So I'll have to order a new momentary switch, so at least I know that's working. I'm not going to bother delaying this video anymore. I want to get this last part of the video out, but that's really kind of boring. You already saw how we installed the other switch. It's just going to be ordering a different style momentary switch and putting it in the same exact location. Alright guys, so I'm kind of at an all-stop for this right now. I wanted to get to finishing this entire video up and get everything finalized the way I should have done it in the last video, but I kind of skimped on a few corners. But like I said, I'm kind of at an all-stop because I can't get that PTC fitting to stop leaking. I tried several different methods of getting it hooked up, and it's not as bad, but it's still kind of bubbling. So it's either one of two things. I either messed the fitting up internally, and so I am going to order a new fitting, or there is a bit of tension pulling sideways on that line. Maybe there's just too much tension pressing on the interior of that push to connect fitting, so we might have to reroute that line. Either way, that's going to involve needing to get underneath of that board a little bit to manipulate that line to get it onto the new PTC fitting, so I can't put the trunk back together. So I figure what I'll do before I do my outro here, I'll give you guys probably what you've been waiting for, is a nice shot of the WRX here getting all aired out. So there it is, guys, completely aired out. Like I said in a previous video, this tire setup's a little small for what I want to end up going with, but it's what we're going to rock for this year. I definitely blew the budget as far as what I want to allocate to the car this year on the air suspension. So next year will be wheels and tires. We'll get a nice set on there and finalize the look for this thing. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. If you watched all three videos and you watched this one all to the end, I really appreciate you sticking around. Be on the lookout for another video coming out where we finalize all the last little odds and ends here with the air system. I'll probably include that in the same episode as rolling and doing just a little bit of pull on the fenders and figuring out how we want to mount the fender liners here in the front. And of course, probably about the time I end up getting that video out, the weather's probably going to be warming up and we're going to be pretty close to the time of getting this back on the road. So we'll be bringing it somewhere to get the alignment done, and we'll get you guys some nice cinematic beauty shots of this all aired out and in its final form. So as always, guys, if you like the video, please feel free to leave a comment below. Hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. Thanks.